What everyday skill becomes suspicious if you're too good at it? Strep throat tests. Used to get strep a lot as a kid, so by the time I was tested for it as a 20-year-old, I had the process down. They stick in the big popsicle stick to hold down your tongue, and then they swab the back of your throat while you try not to gag. Well, I happened to be tested by a relatively new, young, attractive doctor this particular time, and when he complimented me on doing well on the test and not gagging, my response was, "Thanks, I've had practice." If not suspicious, it was at the very least mortifying after realizing the implication of what I just said. Story 2. Remembering things about them they forgot. I told my friend I was getting a job at a store we know. She told me, "I think I've been there before." Then I told her that she has, and I repeated the conversation we had, word for word. I got some weird looks from her. Story 3. Microsoft Excel. I found that out by taking over reporting from others because it took them so much time. I'd automate it to pull from the database, where the previous owner was spending 2 hours a day copy and pasting hundreds of cells. A couple hours of work for once, and then I hit a button and I'm done. I used to release it right away, even with a script to open, refresh, save, and email it. This caused people to not trust the numbers. So now I still pull in the data, but hold off on releasing it for a little bit, even a bit late on occasion. Edit. I see a lot of people wanting to learn Excel. I did a lot of trial and error learning. I'm mid-50s, so I have some time under my belt. Learning a simple programming language helps. I learned BASIC as a kid and Pascal and Fortran later. VB is the most useful at this point though. In Excel, you can add a developer tab, Google it. It will show you how to add it to your Excel. You can record macros and then record your steps when you do things like insert a column, copy a row, etc. You can then see how it works. Mr. Excel, not to be confused with MS Excel, is a great resource. Also, learn VLOOKUPs, as they are very helpful, and you can get how other formulas work. Finally, Google knows all. I don't know if it becomes suspicious if you're too good at it, but I guess people were suspicious that the data wasn't accurate because it was too quick, so that kinda counts. I'll let it slide this time, OP, but watch yourself. Story 4. Being unbothered by blood and guts. I'm a veterinarian. I've spent days up to my elbows in all manner of bodies and parts and fluids. I can watch surgery or necropsy videos over lunch. I did an eye surgery on Tuesday and somebody had to catch the new kid. The big ones aren't allowed to get faint. It's very inconvenient. Related aside, when the nice young lady at the bank says, "Oh my god, there's blood on your shirt," assuring her that it isn't your own, in fact, offers no reassurance. OP, what would make you think that's a good idea to say? Oh, don't worry, it's not my blood. Yes, very inconspicuous, OP. Not suspicious at all. Story 5. Moving through unreasonably tight and cluttered spaces normally. My friends and I used to hang out at an extremely cluttered warehouse that belonged to a hoarder friend. It was full to the point where moving at all without getting stuck on something or causing a garbage avalanche was difficult. And there I was gliding through hills of hoarded garbage like some kind of ghost. They told me it was creepy. Story 6. We play this drinking game where you take the paper bag from the store, put it on the floor standing up, and you have to bend down on one foot and grab it with your teeth. Each round you trim a few centimeters off the top and keep lowering the bag until there's a winner. One of my very unathletic friends at the time would easily win every round. It would just be him, and he was flexible enough to get the bag only 6 inches off the ground. People were super impressed, and I joked, "Oh, it's all that practice from sucking yourself off." And the look he gave me combined with the awkward laugh made me think I might have been closer to the truth than I would have hoped. Story 7. Breaking into someone's car. A few years ago, I was at a new job, and a coworker locked her keys in her car. I got the door open in under a minute. The security guard watched me and had some concerns with the speed at which I opened the car without damaging it. Truth of the matter is that the guard wasn't paying attention completely to what I was doing. My first car was a 2-door sports car, and I learned about a design flaw with those cars when my idiot butt locked my keys in the ignition. She had a similar car and her keys in the ignition, so I took advantage of that design flaw to open her door without damage to the car. OP, I would not exactly consider this an everyday skill, but it's close enough. I'll let this one slide too. It's definitely the most suspicious so far though. Story 8. Remembering things for other people. I pick up random things in conversation, not necessarily in conversations with me too. I like to listen. I'll wish you good luck on that special thing tomorrow. I'll tell you happy birthday. I'll tell you to not forget something. It has saved myself and people around me from getting into crappy situations. Imagine a guy at work who tells you to not forget your wife's birthday next week. Yeah, I'm that guy. ADD has taught me to remember the things I do pay attention to. Story 9. I'm very good at getting detailed information in my peripheral vision. I don't have to be looking directly at someone to study them. Makes me sound like a pervert, but it's a skill I developed because of working/living in situations where letting someone know you're watching them had bad consequences. But so is being ignorant of what they're doing. It's also really frickin' handy. Also somewhat related, reading upside down has had its benefits. Story 10. Spatial awareness. I can look at something and tell you whether or not it will fit onto a wall, into a box or car, through a hallway or stairwell, etc. I was at a shipping store a few months ago, and a guy was in line behind me trying to figure out which size of box to get for the box he was trying to fit it into. I pointed to a specific size and said, "That one," but only if you put your box in this side up. It slid in perfectly, and he gave me the weirdest look. Somehow, though, I always seem to bump into the corners of tables. Story 11. My grandpa, I swear he was magic, could always find a front row parking spot for anywhere we went. It didn't matter if people were parking out in the grass. If he drove up to the front, there was always a spot. If there wasn't, then immediately someone would pull out of their spot to leave, always. Sadly, he did not pass this magic down to anyone. This matches well with my grandma, who is absolutely 100% a fae. It doesn't matter what kind of plant it is or what weather we have, her plants are perfect. They bloom early and keep blooming way longer than they should. We had an ice storm this last winter that took out so many trees. Every tree around my grandma's house was damaged and had broken limbs. Not hers, though. Her trees were fine. What? Neither of these are really that suspicious, but they are very handy things. And just that little bit magical. Definitely the grandmas more so than the grandpas, but the grandpas, I want that one more for sure. Story 12. Reading body language and being particularly sensitive to people. I have a friend who's so good at it, he knows what you're going to do before it even crosses your mind. First time he pulled the whammy on me was when I was about to look for the remote and he handed it to me. No looking around or anything. I just shifted slightly about to get up and he goes, "Here's the remote." Seemed pretty cool at the time. But then, a few weeks later, we were eating out together, and I couldn't decide whether I should get dish A or dish B. He told me to get dish B even though I had never even voiced which dishes I was deciding over. I swear, he's almost psychic. Story 13. Knowing the proper way to dispose of or bury a body without it being discovered. Growing up on a ranch, you have animals die. Disposing of the carcass without attracting scavengers and predators to the ranch is a vital skill to have. I've had a few weird looks from people when watching crime shows where bodies were discovered and pointing out what they did wrong. Along with that skill, ranching brings the ability to quickly skin, clean, quarter, and butcher a carcass. I've learned to just be quiet during these shows. Story 14. For me, it was reading. I was really fast with good comprehension starting at a very young age. And so I got a lot of doubt that I was actually understanding what I read, and every teacher would say I rushed through material. It still upsets me that I had to constantly defend myself about it, although my parents would always back me up, so that was good. They'd lived with the evidence long enough to know that I was telling the truth. I've always been surprised at how unflexible teachers' ideas of kids are. Like, if they do something that the teacher thinks is impossible to do that well or that quickly or whatever, the teacher will just assume they're doing it wrong. Now, in their defense, 90% of the time-ish, yeah, the kid is just doing it wrong. But hey, extraordinary kids exist. Story 15. When I was a kid, we had these blue bonnet books that you could read for prizes if you got a good score on the comprehension test. My teacher accused me of cheating because I was reading them too fast. So she sent me to the library and had the librarian watch me while I read one of them, and then the librarian administered the test. I got to act like a smug little kid for a minute when the librarian told her I aced my test. Then I got lectured anyway on how long-term comprehension doesn't happen when you speed read, and I shouldn't just be reading it for the prizes. The next teacher I had, 3rd grade, rather than being suspicious about it, tested my reading level. I scored 9th grade. She asked me about GT classes. Apparently I'd been in them, then moved, and when I came back, they misplaced me. Got moved back into GT and noticed the way teachers treated me from then on was like night and day. Learned a lot about bias, though. For anyone wondering what GT classes are, I just looked it up. It means gifted/talented class. Basically, kid do good. They get special class, I guess. Challenging material, basically. Story 16. Speaking fluent foreign languages with someone with no explanation before or after. An old coworker of mine, my partner on the ambulance, spoke fluent Chinese with a patient and their family. In China, this would probably be no biggie. But being in Ohio and me not knowing she knew anything more than English, it was very weird. She acted like it was normal. Yeah, OP, everyone knows Mandarin now, don't you? Story 17. I have an uncannily strong sense of smell, which means I can go to the bathroom in school/work and know who was there based on the products used when people freshen up. Have also walked down the main street in Ginza and smelled someone I'd met 6 months ago, before I turned around and saw them walking behind me. I can also predict if it's going to snow based on how the air smells. Twice I said in the middle of June, weird, it smells like snow. And twice, there was a freak snowstorm overnight. All the people who laughed at me were giving me weird stares when they realized everything was covered in a fresh layer of snow. I guess I seem like some kind of voodoo witch. I can also tell how many hours it's been since your last meal or who you met before me just based on scent, which is why it's nigh impossible to cheat on me. OP, now, okay, genuine question, are you perhaps a dog. No, just thought I'd ask. No reason. Of all the things we've read so far, though, this is the coolest one in my opinion. This is like a straight up superpower. A super enhanced sense of smell, knowing if people have eaten, knowing if it's gonna snow. It's just so cool. Story 18. I can almost always tell which way is north, which means I can get to anywhere I've been once by just navigating where I think it should be. My mind has a pretty decent map. I can also count both fairly fast and pretty accurately, so maybe the measurements of travel X amount west naturally occurs on some subconscious level. This doesn't help me too much because I'm horrible with names. So, oh, you mean that cool bar on Broadway? Means literally nothing to me until we get there. And then I remember, I hate this place. Story 19. To be honest, anything with being sneaky. So you know how strict parents often raise secretly uninhibited sneaky kids? Well, guess what I am. In front of my dad until I was 16, I was calm, collected, and submissive. In reality, that was just because I didn't let him see who I really was until certain lines were crossed and I got rebellious, as a boomer might say. I won't break down my whole deal to say why I know these things. Also, I'm not claiming to be a super spy or anything. These are all things that seem normal if you just know how to do them. But I've had it happen more than once where I've implemented one and people with me have had questions. Things like, 1. Picking locks. Sure, like 1 in 3 people can pick a simple or cheap lock. But when you know how to open an electric lock or magnetic security pad, or maybe use the old sound pressure method, you know the one, the thing that people do to code locks when they put their ear against it, to open a more complicated lock and have it actually work, people give you a look. 2. Moving quietly / reducing visibility. I've met a lot of people who think they can be physically stealthy. It's funny because yeah, maybe your footsteps are quiet, but I can hear you breathing like a frickin' pug. Or maybe you're good at hide and seek, but I dare you to cross a room. This is what an overly strict father really teaches you. Learn where the shadows are, including your own, and put your hand over your nose, lined up with the bridge's slope, and take long, slow, soft, deep breaths. I've seen a lot of people say remembering schedules on here, but in my opinion, there's so much more to it. I'd more say 3. Learning someone's patterns. Not just their schedules, but the things that might make them deviate from it. This is actually just a good life skill to have and can really make you a better friend. Knowing when something is different about your friend's behavior can help you help them if something less than good is affecting their lives. But as soon as you start seeing other people's lives through the little windows they give you and putting the pieces together accurately, then you need to watch yourself. Last is my favorite. 4. Double talk. I suppose because of my father, I get really bad anxiety from lying, so I don't. Period. Not even little things. I just skirt the truth. I either give an adjacent answer in an indirect way that changes the initial question, or implies an answer where none is to be had, or change the subject slowly. I'll answer with a question, tell a long-winded story as an answer, over-clarify, etc. Sure, lots of people do it, but you have no idea how satisfying it is to get out of trouble, not because you lied and are thus accountable, but because you slipped away with no trouble. Makes you feel smart. Granted, that still makes me feel super guilty, no matter how minor the issue. Story 20. This might sound weird, but not being a creep. I met a girl online, really interesting and a space freak like me. Stopped talking to me after a while, but eventually we became good friends. When I asked her why she basically ghosted me for a few months that one time, she said she thought I was in a relationship and was hiding it. The reasons she listed? 1. I didn't flirt with her at all. 2. I didn't ask for her WhatsApp. 3. I didn't ask her to meet me. 4. I didn't send her an unsolicited image and or tried intimately texting with her. She thought it was too weird for a guy to start talking and not do any of these things. Apparently, the standards are far too low for men. Not that I was actually interested in her that way. I just wanted to talk about space with someone, anyone. Story 21. I don't know if it's an everyday skill, but gardening. I've had every old fart on my block walk by my house and admire my flowers and then proceed to tell me they will call the police if they see me growing pot. Old people are bold as hell. Like, sir, I'm a psychopath. Don't piss me off or you'll become fertilizer for my flowers. I did have one old guy who said if I did grow pot, he wouldn't call the cops only if I shared it with him. Good deal, Jerry, but for the last time, I don't. My yard is a butterfly garden for Pete's sake, and growing flowers is my therapy. Please get off my lawn or become a part of it. OP, the whole become fertilizer thing, was it supposed to be a joke? I can't really tell, and I'm just a little concerned. That's all. Story 22. Working hard. I build roads for a living from beginning to end. Some days are tough when it's hot and we're slip paving 2,000 plus yards of concrete. It can be fairly physical, and I'm 43. I go to work every day with one underlying goal: to outwork everyone else. I do a lot of the thinking as well, but I try not to let those 18 to 20 somethings outwork me physically. If they do happen to outwork me, I gain respect for them. Being a leader, I also try to be upbeat and energetic as well, so I think they probably assume I'm on something. Story 23. Customer service worker here. I remember certain regulars' orders to the point that if I saw them pull up, I would have their order in and ready for them at the window, which is ironic because my memory regarding my childhood or what happened in the last couple of weeks is absolute garbage. When I was really young, I really struggled with typing because I've got short fingers, but now I can type really fast, like 80 to 100 words a minute fast, and I've gotten so many comments on it. My only fear is that I will develop arthritis really bad in my hands because of this and will no longer be able to type as fast as I can now. Alright, a little bit of a narrator flex here. My typing speed, I average around 120. I gotta have optimal typing speed to really roast people in League of Legends and still not miss my minions, you know what I'm saying? But really, being able to type fast is really fun, but not really suspicious. People do genuinely get interested in it though. I had one gig I was working on and the course director for it, he wanted to see me type because he had heard that I can type really fast. Alright, flex over, next story. Story 24. I grew up in a somewhat abusive household, so I'm really good at reading microexpressions and observing other people's behavior and body language. I know people's moods before ever talking to them. I know when they're lying about something, and I know when certain situations are going to turn bad. A friend called me sneaky because I notice everything around me, even if it looks like I'm not paying attention. My shrink calls it being hypervigilant. I call it being quietly observant. Story 25. Getting people to open up. I'm kinda socially dumb, but I learned that just asking someone questions about themselves will get someone talking for hours. I do this frequently and likely know more about some acquaintances than their own family does. Sometimes I get the impression that people suspect I'm trying to get information out of them, but they still just talk endlessly about their goals, fears, childhood work, secrets, and deep personal stuff. My guess is that most people don't ever really get the chance to pour out their soul to someone, but I will gladly sit there and listen. Story 26. Spotting cops and people who are up to something. I can look at a street and in 5 seconds tell you about the 2 undercover guys watching the dealer on the corner and tell you where his runner is. I can see the guys who probably have outstanding warrants avoiding the uniforms, the escort talking to the guy parked halfway up the street, and the other guy cruising looking for his dealer. It all comes together in a snapshot. Most people can get about half of it if they observe for a while. I've learned not to talk about it. People who don't know me think I've been part of that game. Story 27. Being a good judge of character. I've had to bite my tongue so many times because I think someone isn't a good person or has issues that will end up hurting my friend or something, and said friend just doesn't see it and goes anyway. It's happened dozens of times. The person in question almost always ends up doing exactly what I expected or feared. I had a friend a long time ago who legit asked me one day if I could read minds. Wasn't sure how to respond to that one. I don't know if this is suspicious if you're too good at it, but it's definitely helpful in a lot of cases. Part of me actually wants to meet OP and be like, what kind of character do I have? I want to know how I'm perceived by someone who seems that, in tune with other people. Anyway, hearing about these skills has definitely been interesting. I hope you had a great time listening, maybe learned a few things. I also hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.